Welcome to the Walking Dead UK podcast. It's Entertainment Talks podcast for The Walking Dead World Beyond on AMC and Amazon. I'm your host Matthew. Joining me today, my co-host is David. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. This is for season 1, episode 8. Season 1, episode 8. The sky is a graveyard. What did you think of this episode?
It was an interesting one. It
Mm-hmm.
went in directions that I think, I didn't think it was going to go in, because we've talked on previous episodes about who do you think is going to make it out of this? What did what do you think with like which characters aren't going to survive? And, we talked about what happened with Silas and, yeah, so the fact that he's seemingly kind of gone off on his own, and then we've had Elton chasing after him, so they've ended up splitting the group up in an interesting way, which I thought was intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
It was also the sort of fallout of what was going to happen. Yeah, what were they going to do with Silas at the end of the last episode? Because I think I kind of figured they probably weren't going to kill him outright, but it was sort of interesting, just the different directions, and of course, not only we've also discovered, which wasn't particularly clear, that not only is they killed the older guy, but Percy, the kid,
Yeah,
has
that was an
vanished somewhere.
interesting one. Yeah.
Yes. So we still don't entirely know. I mean, it does look like Silas did do what he seems to have done, and bashed the guy's head in. But it's still not 100% clear that's what happened.
Yeah.
Um, but we got a lot more background about the incident, around what happened with his father. Whilst he did sort of kill him, well, I mean, I guess he did, because he did die from the injuries, but he was clearly being very abused as a child. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there was some justification for him suddenly lashing out like that.
Mm, definitely.
So, yeah, it was interesting to see all that background stuff.
Yeah, I really, really like this episode. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, I like the revelations in this episode about Elizabeth and Huck, and then you've got, of course, the whole mystery around Silas. I don't think that he did it. I know that he says to Iris in the episode about Tony and Percy being dead, or that I killed both of them. I'm gonna leave and stuff like that. I think it's just tied into I think he believes maybe that he did it or something, but I definitely think he's being set up by somebody. Whether that person's Huck, which looks like a possibility, given
Yeah,
what's revealed about that in this episode, her
yeah.
being Elizabeth's daughter. But yeah, I certainly think that he's being set up. But I think that because of his violent past, he feels like he wants to maybe take the blame, or feels like he should, or something along those lines anyway. Because this episode's obviously tied in with the flashbacks about his dad and the violent past there, and what he had to do and everything, and then his mum kind of seeing him as a monster,
Mhm.
saying like, don't come near me, you monster, whatever it was that she said. I thought that was good. I thought they did some interesting stuff in this episode with structure. That's something I've been talking about for some time, structures with TV shows, because it's not just pacing that's important, like how quick your episode is and how much room you're giving to breathe for different stories, but they do a lot of cutting back and forth between the past and the present, or even the past before the past, I suppose, with certain different like timeline stuff that they're playing around with, and different cuts that they do with the camera. Usually something like that would bug me quite a lot, because I do look for structure and that sort of thing in TV shows, and how you basically put your scenes together in terms of it being sort of a jigsaw for the episode, and how well that actually works. But I actually thought I kind of understood why they did what they did with that in this episode, and I thought it worked out pretty well. So that was good. But yeah, overall I thought this was a great episode. I thought it was a good character episode as well. Of course, we got the big Elton and Hope thing as well in here, which was really interesting.
Yeah,
We'll get into more of those specifics, sorry, when we get to those in the scenes. But Yeah, I just really continue to enjoy what this show is doing. And yeah, we got 2 episodes left. Did you know next week is supposed to be a double episode?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. I've read
Okay.
it. I read in a lot of different places that they're releasing 9 and 10 together. So I guess we'll
Okay.
finish with this next week, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think AMC did this like schedule release thing because they said about Walking Dead, the main show coming back 28th of February or 1st of March, depending on where you live. So yeah, it looks like we might be in for a double finale next week, which will be pretty cool. So
Mm.
um, but yeah, I enjoyed a lot what they did with this episode. Some really interesting character stuff, some interesting revelations, and it is all building towards something quite interesting, I suppose. So we'll
Yeah.
see where they go in the next 2 episodes. Yeah, I want to talk about the Percy thing for a second because we don't really see, well, we don't see him at all in this episode. And then we know obviously that Tony's dead. I think that's pretty clear as day.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty clear as day with that. And then just later on at some point in the episode, because I was kind of wondering throughout, like, okay, where did Percy go? Has like Percy set Silas up? And then he says, Silas says to Iris at the end, like, oh yeah, I killed them both. I killed Tony and Percy. What did you think of that? I thought that was
I,
a bit strange, maybe.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think, the way that it was presented, the fact that he's gone back over his violent past and we've seen the kind of elements of that, the way that they were kind of going back through those memories, I think you're right. It's more that he's convinced himself was because of the guilt of what he did previously, even though I think there was some justification for it to his father.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's more that he's feeling that he probably did do it. And I don't think, he did say as well, I don't remember anything. But, and we never actually saw him remember doing anything to those guys. So I think that it's probably more that he assumes that he did do it. It seems quite possible that he did in his mind. So he assumes he did do it. And I think it's more that. So I think we may get more revelations further down the line of, like you say, Huck would be a possible one to have sort of split up that group.
Yeah, I just think because of what happened with Iris and Percy, like the jealousy there, that was pretty clear. I think he did get drunk. Obviously, we saw that, and then I think somebody else killed Tony and seemingly Percy. I mean, we don't see Percy's body even in this episode, so I'm just a little bit confused about that, to be honest. But
yeah, it may be a case of Percy saw it and then disappeared and ran off. Maybe he saw Huck, or he saw what happened, and having seen these sort of friends / father figure, they're not actually father and son, are they? I don't think.
I don't think
Or
so.
are they?
No, I think they're just good friends.
So, having seen this sort of his friend and father figure having his head bashed in by somebody, had then made a run for it, possibly. So,
I mean, fair enough.
there is a possibility that I think we might find that the others find Percy somewhere along the way,
And he can maybe say something.
and he maybe admits to it, and that forces them to go and look for the other two. So
Yeah.
but we'll see.
But yeah, I think somebody else killed at least Tony, and then just like sort of framed Silas. I'm just guessing. We don't know. Obviously, that's what we're here. That's part of what we're here to do anyway, is to speculate and guess a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I think kind of happened. So, but that's it for the pre-talk. We'll get into some of the scenes, or all of the scenes really, in a minute. Let's take a quick break, and we'll tell you what else has been going on with Entertainment Talk. See you in a minute. Hi there, and thanks very much for listening. Today I'm here to tell you about our 2 different affiliate links. The first of which is our Amazon affiliate link. That's where you can shop on Amazon. We can get a small cut of what you spend, but it won't cost you anything extra. So whether you're getting a gift for somebody else or treating yourself, or maybe both depending on the occasion, we can get a small cut of what you spend, but it won't cost you extra. You can find the link to our Amazon affiliate link in your show notes. The second affiliate link for today is our Kualu affiliate link. If you want to get started with a website and a domain name of your choice, you can simply sign up with Kualu using the link in the show notes. They also have a live chat support system that's in the bottom right hand corner as well. So if you need help with getting set up, Kualu will be able to help you with that as well. The links for both of these can be found in your show notes for Kualu and the Amazon affiliate link. If you would like to get the ad-free versions of Entertainment Talks podcast and support us along the way, you can simply sign up over on our Patreon page. You can sign up either as a creator or as a patron. There's no difference there for the time being, and you can get your ad-free podcasts over there. It's a great way to support us on Entertainment Talk and to get rid of the ads and get your ad-free podcasts. You can also support Entertainment Talk on Patreon at the $3 level tier. This gets you a chance to request a review from us of your favourite TV show or film, but it's one per month, so one TV show or film review per month. It's up to you which one you want to choose. We will watch a few episodes of the TV show that you choose, or of course if it's a film, we'll just watch that film and we will review that for you on that month. And then when it gets to the next month, you can request a new TV show or a film review of your choice. That's $3 level tier. That does also of course include your ad-free podcasts for the month as well. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy the rest of the show. Alright, recently on Entertainment Talk, Manchester United beat Istanbul, the Turkish team, in the Champions League last night, the fourth out of the 6 group stage games in the Champions League. Not quite qualified yet, we still need to beat, I'm not quite sure what we need to do exactly to qualify, but probably win the next 2 games would be very, very helpful to do that. But 4 goals for Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes just scored a screamer. If you're curious about that, it was the first goal. If you look up the highlights, you can see that as well. Dan James came on to score the 4th goal. Rashford scored a penalty, and Bruno Fernandes also scored from a mistake from the goalkeeper. Literally dropped the ball, landed in front of Bruno, and he just tapped it in. So yeah, you got to score the easy shots and the hard ones is important. But 4-1 to Manchester United. We travel to, I think it's Southampton on Sunday, so look out for that. But good stuff happening there for the most part. Gaming talk this week, we talked about Cyberpunk 2077, just some different information about it. The game is going to have an option to switch off the nudity in the game. So me and Robert sort of discussed that and talked about, you know, adult content in games and censorship, and sort of, you know, mature stories and that sort of thing, and just some actual new features about Cyberpunk. There's an interesting Twitch feature that's going to be included, which is a button to mute copyrighted music, because you can get sort of copyright striked for that sort of thing.
Yes.
So instead of doing what somebody else suggested, which is to mute your entire game, which isn't a great idea, you can just switch off copyrighted music for the game. So some good stuff for Cyberpunk. It does come out very, very soon on December 10th. Which is in about 2 weeks or so. So look out for that when that comes out. That's of course the new CD Projekt Red game, who previously made The Witcher 3. So
yes,
and previous Witcher games.
Just bought that on Steam. I
Cool.
finally caved. I don't usually buy full price games, but yeah, because it's like £50, which I object to strenuously playing that for a PC game. But yeah, I'm gonna buy it and gonna play it, so I may as well pre-order it.
Cool, nice. I did also on that podcast give my impressions of Watch Dogs Legion, the newest edition in the Watch Dogs series from Ubisoft as well. So we talked about a bunch of stuff. Fear the Walking Dead is now concluded for its mid-season finale, Season 6, Episode 7. I don't know exactly when that's going to be back, but some point in 2021 for the remaining 9 episodes. So instead of doing 8 and 8, which is what they usually do, they did 7 and they're doing 9 for the second half. So that's that at the moment for Fear the Walking Dead for the 6th season, the first half. And I gave some opinions about that. Let's Play Sundays episode 62 for Fall Guys. This is the co-op video that me and Robert did, so you can have a watch for that if you want to. Manchester United also beat in the return of the Premier League after the very long international break. Beat West Brom by a goal to nil, so that was good. Did a podcast about The Last of Us HBO TV series, if you like your post-apocalyptic stories, which I'm assuming you at least somewhat do, given that you're watching this show. HBO has now officially greenlit it and ordered it to series. Ellie and Joel, the roles of those have not been cast yet. Of course, the process is probably ongoing for that. But I listed 4, not very many reasons, but all big reasons to be excited for the upcoming HBO TV series. So talked about that. Analyzing Television, 2 episodes of that. Episode 5 was talking about Disney Plus's weird reboot strategy. There's a lot of reboots coming down the pipe for Disney Plus, just for some old films and stuff. I talked about how that's kind of a little bit strange. I mentioned it before on Geek Town. I remember when you brought up a reboot news piece about one of the films, and I sort of mentioned just how strange it is. So I talked about all of that. Did a podcast on Last of Us Part 2 and Crash Bandicoot 4, just talking about how special the games are to me, and they kind of helped me through difficult parts in this year. And yeah, that sort of thing as well. There's no spoilers for either game in that podcast, so you can listen to that. And lastly, Analyzing Television Episode 4 talked about season and episode lengths. What is a good length for a season of TV? 8 episodes or 23 or somewhere in between? And what's a good length for an episode, and compared sort of network TV shows and streaming service shows, because they are massively different in the way that they're done in terms of episode and season lengths. So I talked about all that, and that's what we've been doing on entertainmenttalk.org and on podcast platforms. Let's get to the episode. The episode opens with Silas handcuffed and tied to a playground at night. It's like the pole of the swing sort of thing that he's tied to. Inside, the group debates whether or not they think Silas is guilty of killing Tony. They also question whether or not Percy could still be alive, because he's just gone missing entirely. Huck goes outside and gets Silas's bag, dumping it out in front of the group. She drops Iris's drawing out of the bag, indicating that Silas had a crush on her. Really? And Iris was jealous of the whole Percy and Percy getting attention from her, that sort of thing. Yeah, interesting with the whole drawings kind of thing. Some people would find that particularly creepy, I suppose. I didn't have a massive... I mean, he's drawing her and he's drawing other things as well. He likes her. He's, a little bit nervous to maybe approach her and stuff. And of course, Silas went and sort of got in there and everything, and he didn't like the situation. But yeah, and then we have the cool little... I like what they do with the logo for this episode. You kind of tip...
Yeah,
the
sort of, I noticed that was somebody had some fun playing around with that.
Yeah,
just kind of the camera kind of spins round and turns sort of upside down, and then the title reveals in the sky, which is now at the bottom of the screen instead of the top. It was. Yeah. They've been quite inventive with the title reveals on this show.
Yeah, because it kind of started to come out of the building, and then just, as the camera's tipping upside down. I think Silas was looking up at that point as well, so it was like a really kind of good effect. Doesn't make the episode any better or worse, but it was kind of cool nonetheless.
No, but it's interesting. They've done some interesting little things. It's like with Fear, last season or the season before, started changing their titles to a kind of very short little sting, which changes every episode.
Yeah, I remember for Fear, for about the first 4 seasons, it was just the logo was blasting at you, and that was it. It was pretty bad. And then of course you got the main show, which has got a different intro, probably the best intro. But anyway, what do you think of Huck just going and grabbing Silas's bag and the reveal of the... I don't think we knew about these drawings.
We had seen the drawings previously, because they were drawings, I think, that have been done by her. They're not done by Silas. They're done by her, and she'd and then Silas had clearly, as a janitor, had been through and fished them out of the bin after she'd drawn them.
Right, yeah. Because one of them says, I think it's Elton, tries to sort of stick up for him and says he was a janitor, so it was cleaning up and stuff. Yeah. So,
but yes, it is somewhat creepy, given that, he has clearly been through the trash and kind of picked them up. And I get it. He's a little weird, and I could kind of understand. But going back to what you're saying about could Huck have set him up? Yeah, I mean, it was Huck that first points the finger at him. It's Huck that had sort of noticed and seen that he'd got these drawings, so had clearly put that together. So, and that would give a motive that gives her cover if she is the person that has actually perpetrated it. So it's I mean, it's sort of interesting. I mean, as I say, we still don't actually know whether Silas did actually do it. I mean, it does all point to him, but I mean, that is the other possibility as well.
Yeah, I mean, all the signs kind of point to Huck betraying him in some way, shape or form, and it's kind of pushed forward by the end of the episode with the reveal of her being Elizabeth's daughter. Somebody had a really weird theory online. I know the internet's kind of a weird place and whatever.
Of course.
They said that doesn't Hope look like a young Huck? And I was like, okay, sure, but she's not Huck from the. We're not doing time travel in this show. Like she's not a young version of Huck. That's not possible because she's in the same scenes.
But I think there's an implication that maybe they're related in some way. Which, I mean, yeah, maybe, but I don't think so. That would be a little weird.
Yeah, maybe. But that's your cold open anyway, and yeah, that's what happens with that. In the past, Silas finds his dad bloodied and dying. His father had beaten him to the point of Silas defended himself and couldn't stop to the point that he's pretty much killed him, and you see a little bit more later on revealed as to what exactly happened. They do cut back and forth a lot in the episode, just in terms of this, but yeah, it was good to again revisiting characters' pasts. The show's been really, really good with doing that because you know, the main Walking Dead show in the past would have made this an entire episode, and they would have. I can't imagine, with like the sort of past of the main show when they've done a lot of these flashbacks as like main episodes. I don't know how you wouldn't have been able to do this show like that because you would need to made it twice as long.
Yeah.
Because you think about all the flashbacks we've had in this season, all the ties back to like the day one and you know the day the sky fell and whatever, and like each character's reveal of their past and everything that happened. If you go through and you make those separate episodes, the season basically would be 20 episodes instead of 10. So yeah, I like the way that they've been sort of splicing these in the episode, and it's actually, it does fit pretty well with, I mean, it's usually related to the actual character that's focused on in the episode, like with Huck or whoever it's been, but I actually think the sort of situation is like with this episode, for example, going back to Silas's violent past, and even though we've kind of had somewhat of an explanation and hint as to, okay, the dad, you know, was violent and there was the implication of that there, but now that, okay, Silas has possibly messed up and killed this person, you kind of go back and get more of a reveal of that, and I feel like it just ties in really, really well. So the flashback choices aren't just sort of random, they're tied into sort of who the focus of the episode is, which this time is Silas, like what they've done in the past as well. So yeah, what did you think of the first piece of this flashback?
Yeah, I quite agree with you, and in the main shows, like you say, it's the type of thing that Gimbal would have given an entire episode over to, and it just goes to show you how you can do it in a much better, more effective way, and how much filler there was in the main show. Because it was the worst offenders of that was the point, sort of the 2 seasons post Negan, before Angela Kang took over, and that was the point where things really dragged on the main show, and I think that was probably the worst offending point where they did these sort of bottle and flashback episodes and stuff. So
the 32 Negan episode arc.
That you know, and much as I love Negan as a character, that really dragged in places.
The character wasn't the problem, it was the story,
the writing and the structure of it. So it does go to show you how you can add texture and background to characters without having to do that. And what's sort of interesting actually is on the main show, the 6 new episodes, they've now released the descriptions of those for the next ones coming up, you know, the additional episodes coming to season 10. And if you read the descriptions of those, it seems to be very much doing them from what you can see from the descriptions in this sort of style, in that we're following certain characters in their current timeline, but there is going to be a lot of flashback stuff in there. You know, there appears to be flashback stuff with Daryl when he left the group after Rick disappeared. There's the whole Here's Negan episode, which they're doing, which is going to be tied into a situation that Negan finds himself in present day. So it feels like they're maybe going to be doing this sort of structure more in the main show as well. And I think with this particular episode, with the stuff with Silas, it's probably the most, the last couple of episodes actually with this and with Huck are probably the most flashbacks we've had. But the way they're doing it with sort of short little, each of those segments was probably no more than 5 minutes tops each time, even probably a bit less. And so they're not huge chunks of the episode. They're kind of jumping backwards and forwards. And I think that works really quite well in the way that they're structuring it. And particularly with Silas in this episode, as it's him basically sit there thinking about what actually happened and trying to remember what happened when this incident happened the first time. And him coming to the conclusion that, yes, he probably did kill them. Because he's done it before, so why wouldn't he do it this time? But we still don't know that conclusively. It is just something that's in his head of, well, I did it last time, so I probably did it this time. But you don't know, although he says, I did it, we don't know.
Yeah. So, and as we said before, not only are these flashbacks serving the characters, like significant parts of these characters, they're also, they've not particularly with this episode, but they've also, served as like, okay, how did this thing start? So they've just done so many different good things with it. So later, Iris, Huck, Felix, and Hope continue to debate what to do about Silas. There are several ideas. Elton sits with Silas and talks with him, pointing out that Silas only acts violently in self-defense or defense of someone else, which I think is definitely true. And Elton believes that Silas might be innocent. He's right. I mean, Silas, at least from what we've seen so far, there could be more flashbacks and things revealed later on, but in the flashbacks of his dad, it was him defending himself and his mum in in the show before, like when he punched that Walker, it was to defend Iris. And then he's done it pretty much every time to just defend someone. So that's I kind of like Elton's thinking there, and he's arguably probably the smartest character in the group. But his thinking about like, okay, unless Tony attacked Silas, Silas is less likely to do that, because when he attacks people and brings out the violent side of himself, it's usually, at least from everything that we've seen, to defend somebody else. So that it doesn't really quite fit with his character to have just attacked Tony. We don't know that for definite, but I like Elton's sort of thinking here.
Yeah. So. Also, logically, the person that he had a problem with was Percy, actually, not Tony.
Yeah.
So you'd think if they were going to find somebody with their head bashed in, it would be Percy, because there is no reason for Silas to go after Tony particularly. There's no, other than the fact that, he was one of the two people that came in and disrupted this dynamic in the group, and possibly, had he not kind of arrived and had they not got involved with him, Silas would still be closer to Iris. But it doesn't really sit quite well. I think that's an interesting choice that they made, of having Tony being the one with his head bashed in, not Percy, which makes me think that Percy is probably still alive out there. Because if you really wanted to frame Silas directly, you'd think that Percy would be the one that they'd kind of, have his head bashed in, which kind of leads into the possibility that it wasn't him that did it, because I think Percy's more likely to fight back, whereas Tony's kind of an older guy, and if it was Huck and she snuck up on him and he wouldn't really have been expecting it, I think he's somewhat a little bit more trusting, maybe. So
yeah, and it makes more sense for like if Silas was going to attack Percy in some sort of like I'm defending Iris but jealous rage sort of thing. It just lines up so much more that he would have attacked Percy instead of Tony. But I like Elton's thinking here. I do like Elton a lot. I think he's a good character.
Oh yeah.
It's just a shame about the end of the episode, but but we'll get onto that in a little bit. In the past, Silas has to open the door when somebody is knocking while his dad is dead on the floor, or either in the process of dying or dead on the floor on the ground. back in the now, Elton declares he's going to believe in Silas because Silas won't have proof, or Silas will be left behind. So he kind of wants to defend him. Yeah, so someone comes to knock on his door, and this woman seems to be the woman that knocks on the door seems to be quite clearly aware that, like, okay, there's clearly a violent past with the dad that's been established. Maybe the neighbors have heard certain loud noises or shouting or screaming or whatever at different points, because this has probably been going on for a good few years. At least. So yeah, she just kind of, the neighborly thing of offering, like, okay, you can come with me right now, and I'll contact your mum, and get you away from your violent dad, sort of thing. Not realizing that if she opens the door, Silas is the one with the blood on his hands, so Silas has to kind of push her away, because Silas would know what that would look like. If he says yes and he opens the door and oh, there's blood on my hands, sees the dad behind her or behind him, then she suddenly gets a different picture. But an awkward situation for Silas, certainly. I'm sure he'd love to get away from his dad and everything. And if she'd have knocked 20 minutes a little bit before this particular attack, things could have possibly gone a bit differently. But Silas could have potentially got literally caught red-handed. So it's a bit of a shame. It is quite a sad story, really. I mean, domestic abuse is awful and everything, and it was clearly towards his mum and Silas as well. So it was kind of the whole family sort of thing. But yeah, I just feel for Silas in this scene. What did you think?
Yeah, no, totally. And you sort of understand that. I mean, he's kind of freaking out a bit because, he's obviously clearly done quite a lot of damage. He doesn't know whether he's actually killed his dad or not. And, he knows that is going to bring heaps of trouble. So, it's an awful situation, as abuse always is. But, I mean, it's really quite sort of tragic, the whole setup for it. And, I sort of, you do feel for him in this, definitely.
Yeah. Interesting thing here, just a little comment on the Elton searching for proof for Silence's innocence. The problem there, and I get it, Elton's trying to help him, he's been great at everything. The problem is you've got the kind of red-handed thing, caught red-handed thing again, which is they saw Silas in the previous episode in the corner with the wrench in his hand with blood everywhere, so it looks so much worse. But I liked that that Elton's trying to help him out and stuff. Also in the same flashback thing, when he closes the door on this woman and says, like, can you go away or whatever, turns around and his dad is no longer in that same place.
Yes.
So that's a problem. But we'll talk about where that kind of goes. What did you think when he turned around? His dad wasn't there. Did you think Walker straight away, or something else?
Not necessarily. I thought maybe he's kind of just moved, but I mean, you knew that he was going to end up being a Walker. I think that was fairly obvious.
Yeah.
That was going to happen at some point. I mean, we still. It does come around to the fact that we still haven't quite. We haven't got sort of any explanation about how this infection suddenly spread to everybody. I don't know whether
it's supposed to be airborne, isn't it?
I guess so. I guess it's supposed to be airborne.
I don't remember Kirkman ever explaining it necessarily.
No. So presumably, it's airborne, and because we know everybody's got it, and we know that if you die, you turn, regardless of whether you've been bitten or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, presumably it must be airborne. But, yes, it's interesting that, because we didn't know exactly when this was set, but that was always going to be a possibility that his father turned.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering in that scene, he turns around, he closes the door, turns around, he's not there. Part of me kind of thought, like, okay, we don't know in the timeline or what year it was at that point, because this could have been ages before that. Although Silas is older, part of me was just kind of wondering at the time, has this virus started yet? But then we got our answer soon after. But because the assumption straight away is, like, he's turned and got up and walked away, and then you can kind of hear him clattering around the house later on. But I was just kind of wondering that. So outside, Felix talks with Silas. Silas starts to wonder if he is innocent. Felix wants to work with him, but he needs some sort of information to start with, but he can't remember anything. Yeah, a bit of a difficult scene here with Felix. Obviously, like we said, he's been sort of the either brother or uncle sort of father figure of the group, whatever way you want to sort of put that. Like the protector of the group, is out here to help the girls and help the help everybody in the group sort of get through this, because as has been pointed out many times throughout these episodes, they weren't exactly prepared for this world. So
No.
Felix needed to be along for the journey, and Hug as well. Hug has certainly helped them out. But yeah, him going and talking to him, and he wants some information. They kind of all visit Silas at one point or another in this episode. What did you think of Felix going and talking to him?
Yeah, I mean, this is Felix is very much a kind of trying to keep the peace and trying to just keep them all safe.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to ostracize Silas if he doesn't have to. That it sort of all makes sense. It's very much in character for Felix. But yeah, you do have this ultimate problem of the fact that Silas was apparently caught pretty much red-handed. I mean, we didn't actually see him do the incident because we don't know whether he did it or not, but he did. It did look all pretty bad, and he was blackout drunk, so he can't remember anything. So
yeah, got an evidence problem certainly in this episode, which is what Elton talked about before. Interesting part, I think it's in this particular scene. Silas saying like, you were supposed to kind of look after us and protect us and that sort of thing. I think that's a bit of a harsh thing to maybe put on Felix. Like, this wasn't his fault, and let's face it, he's very, very done very, very well with helping this group so far. I mean, he's literally saved their lives a few times. But I get it, when you had the scene in the flashback from Silas's episode where he gets given to this community thing, and Felix is there trying to sort of taking him on board and helping him. So it kind of feeds back into that. But yeah, there's not too much that Felix can exactly do. There's not really much that anyone can necessarily do until they actually find some evidence, because other than that, it's pretty much the case of, okay, each character kind of goes up to him and says, did you do this or did you not, and trying to get some sort of evidence, but there's just a lack of it, and it's a bit difficult for them. Younger Silas searches for his dad while remembering better times with him. So this is basically when I think this is where the music thing happens, isn't it? Where he tries to make his...
I think so, yes.
Yeah, because the better times part is a good sort of hint towards that. But yes, so this is like the younger version of Silas. Lays him down next to this big speaker thing, and wants him to feel what it's like to be at a concert with the whole loud music thing.
Yeah, and puts way to damage your eardrums, but yes.
Exactly, yeah. Try to make your son deaf before he's of a older age or whatever. Yeah. And then his dad lays down next to him. Probably his best moment with his dad, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a happy moment, certainly. And I'm glad that they put this in this part of the episode, because, it all kind of looks doom and gloom and massively sad for Silas, which it is, like we said before about domestic abuse. It's pretty horrible, but this was a nice way to balance it out slightly, of like, okay, things were definitely bad, like really, really bad, but there was actually a time before this whole attack and everything, because when he attacks his dad, obviously, or defends himself, he's the older version. So yeah, kind of hitting back to before everything kind of went and whatever. There were some good moments between them, which I did quite like to see that. But I wonder what Silas's hearing is like now. So what do you think of the slightly happier moment here with his dad?
I was just say, way to completely destroy your eardrums at a young age, but I mean, I think it is good that they put this sort of in, because it does show that there were some good times, and you kind of need a little bit of balance that sort of shows that there was some love there at some point, and clearly something changed along the way. But what that was, we don't quite know. But Yeah, I think it was important that they did put this in, and also this leads into him in the sort of next scene, then sort of sitting on the floor. He has this as this happy memory, and him sitting on the floor with his Walkman on and listening to music as a way of kind of distracting himself as well.
Yeah, yeah, because some people use music like that for a comfort, don't they? So, which is totally understandable. I wonder if we'll get any, because the only real other thing I want to see in terms of flashbacks for Silas is okay, yeah, like you said a second ago, what was the kind of turning point for his dad? Like, what happened? What was it like? He just kind of became a drunk or whatever, or was it something like he got fired from his job or something? Because there's a clear kind of difference between the more violent guy that we see in the earlier scenes and this clearly nicer dad. Whether or not he should be blasting music into his son's ears is a different thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to know whether it's just something that decayed over time, and this was just a rare moment that things were better. So maybe he's always been like that, or whether there was some incident along the way which flipped the dad into being this sort of more violent person.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe we'll get that, maybe we won't. But that's that. In the present, Hope gets frustrated. Huck assures her that she needs to do what is best for everyone, and every choice has to be about getting the group to their dad, which is the main goal of the show, really, even if it is painful in the moment. Hope convinces Iris to continue on the journey over an emotional conversation, sort of some sisterly moments. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously very frustrating for the whole group because nobody really knows what happened. There's not enough evidence, as Elton's already kind of pointed out. But they all do know that at some point, we have to decide what's happening with Silas, and we do eventually have to move on. But it's obviously the case that Silas just leaves in the end, and they don't really choose. But yeah, it's difficult for them all, definitely. What do you think of their sort of situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is just sort of the backwards and forwards between, well, what do we do? Because, he is their friend, but he is also potentially kind of violent, and, they have seen elements of that before when he went crazy on the walker a few episodes ago.
Right.
So, they know he is capable of that, but it's, it's Hook that actually pushes them, as we now know the reasons why, but he's pushing them to say, no, you need to make sure that you stay on this track to get to your dad. That's why you're out here. Which is true, but it is also interesting that it's Huck that's pushing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in the past, Silas finds a bloody door handle. He finds a bathroom to be filled with bandages and cloths and things. Upstairs, he finds his dad and apologizes. When his dad turns around, he is a walker, and Silas has to get away from him, not quite understanding what it is or what he needs to do with it, or
of course
why his dad's face now looks really weird, and is growling and not talking. All the main differences between a walker and a human. So he has to get away from him. He locks himself in a bedroom. I think this is actually his bedroom, isn't it? Or
yeah,
well, the one from the flashback anyway. Unable to put him down and tries to escape, but there is bars on his window. Opens the window and there's like prison sort of bars on it. That was crazy.
Yeah, that's not as uncommon as you might think in some areas of America.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not hugely common, but there are some houses that have places like that. It's difficult to know whether that's just a reflection of where they are or whether that's something that is more to do with them trying to stop him escaping and his father being kind of overprotective lunatic or controlling person, which I mean we know he obviously was, but so I mean it's weird that he sort of goes to the window, and I mean it's a slight oddity that, because Silas must have known there were bars on the window, surely. To come in the first time he's gone to try and get out and gone, oh, there's bars on the window, and he must have known they were there. So it is a bit weird that they show that, but they sort of needed to show that, I guess. So
yeah, Yeah. But yeah, the slightly younger version of, or not younger, but the earlier version of Silas kind of, this must be his first time witnessing a walker then, because
Yeah,
he has no idea what is going on. And fair enough, if we didn't have all the zombie knowledge that we do from films and TV and games and books and whatever,
yeah, you
we'd,
would
we'd
know.
we'd probably do the same thing.
Mm.
So yeah, understandable. It was an interesting situation, I guess, for him. We kind of, I was sort of wondering, as you can hear his dad sort of thudding around the house and making all sorts of noises. He was either in the process of turning or had already kind of turned and stuff.
I
So
think I turned at that point. I think
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
So, um, yeah, interesting. But yeah, there's bars on his window. So interesting stuff. Going back to the present, Elton is explaining that he followed Percy's trail, trying to do a bit of detective work. Hope wonders why he is defending Silas. When Hope explains they have to focus on what's best for everyone, Elton insists the group stays together, which he is correct on, I think at least, because
Mm.
splitting up in a world like this is, let's face it, never a good idea.
No,
Whenever you get a scene in a horror film of like, hey, you go and check that corridor, I'll check this door, it usually doesn't end very well because one person gets attacked and then the other one doesn't know what to do. But yeah, Elton trying to get the group to stay together, and trying to, bit of Elton here. What do you think of what he's trying to do?
yeah, I mean, staying together is obviously the right thing to do as a general rule. Although, I
Yeah,
mean, if Silas is some sort of psychopath, which we don't think he is, but if he is, then that's also quite dangerous as well. But maybe you are better off knowing where he is, and they're not gonna, they obviously weren't gonna like put him down or anything. So maybe they were better off knowing, but
hmm.
it's
Yeah.
difficult to say.
You really do have like a Lizzie Mika situation here, but with just an older character.
Yeah,
Because you got someone who's more accidentally violent in this situation. Because I can't remember which sister it was, whether it was Lizzie. I think it was Lizzie, wasn't it? That did all
the
that.
infamous look at the flowers
Yeah, yeah,
incident.
that
Yeah,
scene. Yeah,
they, yeah, it is slightly different in that that Silas isn't intentionally
yeah,
violent. It's just something snaps and he goes. Whereas with the kids, it was a misguided but conscious choice. So there is very much a different. She clearly but it was a mental illness issue in some respects. In both cases, it is a form of mental illness issue, but there is a slight difference in between how they approach it. But yeah, there are certainly some similarities there.
mhm, yeah, yeah. You just got to figure out what to do with the person, which I guess is difficult. Going back to the flashback from earlier, he puts his music back on. He plugs his headphones in and listens to music, so he doesn't have to hear, talking about Silas, hear his dad banging on the door. When the music stops, Silas hears his mum come home, and he rushes downstairs because he really needs to save her from his zombified dad. And he smashes his head on the floor, but his mum turns around and calls him the monster. I guess she's a little bit confused and terrified
Well,
and horrified
yeah,
and all sorts of things.
it's sort of understandable. I think, if from the mum's point of view,
Yeah,
certain respect, she comes home, she finds her husband, who she knows is abusive, but
this is
as,
something
as
else.
we know,
Yeah.
as we know, women in there are people in abusive relationships who still have an attachment to their abuser. So there's, this is, and then her son turns up and apparently beats the father to death in front of her.
Mm,
She doesn't know he's a zombie. I mean, to be fair, Silas doesn't really know it's a zombie.
yeah.
So you can see why she's kind of terrified about it, because he has
Mhm.
essentially, this man was alive as far as she was concerned, even though he wasn't. When he comes back, and yes, he went to attack her, but that's probably nothing new in that relationship. And then he just kind of, Silas turns up and just beats him to death as far as she's concerned. So you can see why maybe she has that reaction
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah. Scared and confused, I think, is the way to sort of put it.
Yeah.
So yeah, because her husband is both acting similarly but differently in certain ways. Looks very different, sounds a bit different, and is trying to attack her. So it all happens very fast for her as well. You know, she comes home, she's just
Yeah, she
expecting
comes
kind of a
home and
normal day. Her husband's like all over her, trying to bite her basically, and then son rushes downstairs and beats him to death, or slams his head into the ground to death. So yeah, that was something. So now we know how his dad sort of is fully gone. You know, it was the defensive attack on from Silas, and then this Walker incident. I'm curious to know what happens like immediately after this as well.
Well, I mean, we've sort of seen the scenes slightly later, a little bit later in that. I mean, clearly the mother called the police because we see Silas getting hauled off.
Yeah.
So
that was in his first flashback.
Yeah, that was in the very first flashback. So we do know that that's what happened after this, which is sort of understandable because, I mean, what's interesting about this particular incident is it seems that this was a sort of isolated case of a sort of zombie incident because the police, society is still functioning at this point.
Yeah.
And, so it's probably just before some sort of major event triggers everybody getting turned. And, we don't know exactly what that is, but clearly there was something which turned an awful lot of people at the same sort of, around about the same sort of time, but we've seen these things start to spring up. So the virus is obviously out there, but this is still a relatively normal functioning society.
Yeah.
And we've seen actually, I mean, that was one of the interesting things in the very first episode. We saw how they dealt with that in society, in a functioning society now, where if people were old or infirm, or there is a potential that they may just drop dead, like the therapist that Hope was talking to, they're sleeping in rooms that have bars on the door, so they can't get out and attack people. Should they die in the middle of the night, which is what happens to the therapist. So, it's sort of interesting tying how that's all tied together as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In the present, a Walker starts stumbling towards defenseless Silas, kind of breaks the fence down and all that. Silas narrowly frees himself in time to kill the Walker, but he lays there waiting for it to kill him. Hope gets there just in time to save him. I don't know if you meant to, but I think you probably did, she says, revealing she saved him because enough people have died, which is correct. Kind of just wants to go in this scene.
Yeah.
Silas, he's thinking probably quite a lot in this episode about different things and his violent past and his dad and what he's maybe done. Again, we don't exactly know if he has or not, but just I guess the thought to him of, hey, I potentially bashed this person's head in is probably quite bad. But yeah, this Walker breaks in. He does actually get himself free, but then Hope has to come and save him. It's a pretty sad scene. In full context and everything. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I can see where Silas' mind's at. I mean, what we're seeing with these flashbacks clearly appear to be Silas being remembering what happened with his father, and he's had the night to kind of go over that in his head, and has come to this conclusion of like, well, yes, I probably did do it. I'm an evil person. And again, the reaction of his mother, of just being horrified by it, rather than, oh my God, you saved me, of being completely horrified by him having this violent outburst.
Yeah.
That's also obviously had an effect on the kid as well. So, I mean, Hope thinking, obviously, yes, I think you probably did it, which is entirely understandable given the evidence that was there. And Silas's reaction of like, no, I deserve to die, is also quite understandable, I think, at this point, because he's like, yeah, I'm a violent person, and I've killed my dad. I seem to have killed Tony, and yeah, I don't belong in this world. So you can sort of see why that was his thought at the time, even though he was free.
Yeah. The next day, Iris talks to Silas. She asks him why he kept the poems and drawings. They were too beautiful to throw away. He explains he can't tell her that he didn't kill anyone, but he reveals he is free and approaches. He doesn't remember much other than being angry. He is grateful for her believing him. I killed my dad. I killed Percy and Tony. I'm a killer. I don't want to cause any more problems, so I won't, he says. So yeah, Silas kind of just wants to just leave this whole situation, leave the group, and just sort of, I guess in a way, not burden them with like, okay, what do we do with this guy? You know, that's a difficult choice. There's the somewhat evidence, but not completely clear evidence about what he maybe did or didn't do, or somebody else set him up to do, or whatever. But yeah, he kind of just wants to leave the group and just kind of go away from it for a little bit. Again, pretty sad. I don't really believe about like, okay, he when he says, "Oh, I killed Percy and killed Tony." First of all, nobody knows where Percy even is, and like we said throughout the episode, there's just a lack of evidence about Tony. Yeah, what do you think of him wanting to leave the group, and to me wanting to just not be kind of a burden on the group?
Yeah, again, this sort of speaks to his character, I guess, of he's incredible. You know, he has a lot of affection for these people. He's very worried that he's violent and angry and prone to these angry outbursts, and it's entirely possible that he did do it in his mind. And as you say, we don't know. The fact that he said, "I killed Percy and Tony," I don't think that. I think that's what he thinks, but I don't think that is necessarily true, because he says, "I don't remember." Other than being angry, I don't remember exactly what happened. So he doesn't know that he did that, even despite the fact that's what he says. So yeah, I mean, I can understand him wanting to walk away, and because he doesn't want to hurt these people because they've become his friends. So
she walks back into the building alone and reports to report that Silas has gone. No one expects him to come back to them. Elton is going to leave with Silas because Silas thinks nobody believes in him if he doesn't. So Elton again wants to sort of stick up for Silas. Elton hugs Hope and promises everything happens the way it's supposed to be. He thinks he is supposed to find Silas and then his mother and sister. Hope questions Elton's hopelessness and desire to find his mother. She reveals that she has his mum's necklace and hopes he will forgive her one day. She reveals that, you know, about the whole incident, and you get a sort of inner monologue describing what happened that night as Elton is kind of walking off, and he wants to go and find Silas, and he's clearly extremely upset with what's happened. Yeah, interesting. This whole thing has finally come out. Of course, I think it was last week's episode we did have Hope talking to Huck about this, and she had to just get it off her chest and tell somebody. Interesting to me that so Elton knows now about what happened. Iris knows that she killed somebody, but not that it was Elton's mum, and Huck knows that it was Elton's mum as well. So Elton knows more than her sister does, and so does Huck, which is interesting. I'm guessing at some point, now that she's told Elton, I'm guessing at some point she'll tell Iris. I think.
I would think so.
It makes some sense that she, because like surely when they next, you know, the group next comes together and Silas and Elton are gone, and Felix will probably say like, "Hey, who talked to him last?" or like, you know, what happened. Surely she'd say, maybe not to Felix, but surely she'd explain that, oh, he went off, and then she'd maybe have a conversation with Iris about what happened.
I would have thought so. And I mean, Iris, I think, would be far more understanding as well. I mean, you know, Elton's obviously upset about it, but you have to also remember that Elton's mum did shoot their mum.
Yeah.
So, you know, her mum. So, you know, I mean, I think that there's sort of understanding. She was a kid and she picks up the gun and it sort of goes off. And so the entire situation was just very unfortunate. It wasn't like 100% intentional on either side.
It was a bad day for everybody.
It was just a bad day for everybody, like you say. So I think Elton maybe will forgive her at some point, and I think they will probably come back together. I suspect that Iris and Hope will have a conversation, and they'll understand, and I think that will probably be okay.
Yeah.
And I think Felix will just roll over. I don't think that's going to be an issue either. And this is what I was saying before, was there will be a reason, Hope will feel that she has to tell him at some point, because of him going off and sort of like, yeah, I'm going off to see my mother, which is what I sort of said. There will be a reason that Elton puts himself in a situation which is going to potentially be dangerous, and one of the reasons will be going to look for his mother. I did wonder whether it would be more direct, in that he would see somebody and try and run towards them thinking that it's his mother, and maybe at that point. But this made sense, I think.
Yeah, which might have happened if she didn't tell him.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
That's entirely possible. But yeah, it had to come out sooner or later. I mean, we've had 8 episodes to kind of get to it and stuff. What episode did we find out? Was it in the premiere, the pilot?
It was...
Or was it the second episode? I think it might have been the second episode.
No, did we actually know it was Elton's mum before she saw the picture? I can't remember.
I think we did.
I think I don't think it had been specifically said until she actually saw the picture, but people had put 2 and 2 together on that. I don't think it was explicitly stated. But yeah, certainly because we'd seen Elton's mother and we'd seen the shooting. So I think we probably did know earlier on when we saw when we actually saw the flashback of Elton with his family, which was the second or third episode, I think. So
like that, yeah.
We've known for a while anyway.
Yeah, but it's finally out, and the show can kind of move on from there. Elton heads out on his own. He finds a walker after tripping up next to it. He's got 50 bags on his back, and he's got every supply in the world with him. He's got a lot of bags on him. He really has.
Yes.
Like a sort of just too many ones that are gonna it's gonna just hold him back kind of thing, because there's just too much weight there, which is clear because he falls over. So he looks at the necklace before rising up and continuing. Meanwhile, Silas kills a walker and puts his headphones on. He puts them on the ground. Sorry, he puts them on, listens to a bit of music, kills this walker. Does like this one-hit kill with was that a 2x4, a piece of wood or something?
Yeah.
He just whacks it like once with because to kill a walker with something blunt is far more difficult than to kill a walker with a sharp object, because you don't have the the penetration of the blade or the sharp objects. But I was kind of slightly impressed by that. He just whacks this thing once and it's just done. But he's got a lot of strength, so that kind of makes sense. I thought that was cool.
Yes.
And then he puts the headphones on the ground, and kind of just sort of walks off. I'm guessing Elton will probably catch up to him. Silas can't be that far away. I mean, he basically just left. So yeah, what do you think of them two? I don't know what they're gonna do now, really. In terms of
my feeling is that we maybe in the last couple of episodes we end up finding Percy and he explains what happened, and that makes the rest of them realize the sort of terrible mistake of the others going off on their own, and Silas didn't do it, and whether we'll get the reveal of it being Huck, which is what we suspect at the moment, but I rather suspect that we might end up with the group kind of back together possibly next week. That may happen, or maybe it will be left until the second season. I think they will come back together at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting, and Silas and Elton being together, I think, is an interesting pairing as well, because I think Elton, as we've seen, is completely not capable of looking after himself, and
has he killed the walker yet? I think he's the only one that hasn't.
I don't think he has, no. And Silas, Silas is kind of a bit lost at sea on his own as well. So I think the pair of them together would probably make quite a reasonable team. It's sort of, brains and brawn, really, with that.
Yeah. Do you mean that Percy might find those two or the main group? What did you mean?
Well, actually, yeah, I don't know. Either I think is entirely possible.
Yeah.
It would be interesting, actually, if Percy found Silas, and if it turns out that Silas didn't kill Tony and something else happened and Percy runs into those two and reveals, that would be an interesting one, because that the rest of the group could just decide to kind of move on. And if Percy finds those two and Silas then realizes, actually, I didn't kill Percy, so maybe I didn't kill Tony, it could be a case of the three of them actually end up meeting, and then they go back to find the rest of the group, because if Percy then knows that if Percy does know what happened and it turns out it was Huck, then they have a reason to go and try and catch up with the rest of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to want to warn them that they've got a traitor there. So that may be an interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, that could be good. I'm still kind of bummed that, I don't know how you feel about it, but I am kind of bummed that Tony's gone. But that's, as I've said before about character deaths, that's a good thing. But not that he's dead, but that I miss him, because that means that the show made me care about a character that died. Because as I've always said, if a show or whatever piece of media you're watching or playing, if a character dies and you just go, oh, okay, cool, then that means that it doesn't matter to you because you didn't care about them. But if a character dies and you go, oh, damn, that character's gone, or you're like really devastated or whatever, it's a bad thing that the character's gone, whoever it is, but it's a good thing because it means that the show made you care about someone. So, I mean,
care in one way or another. I mean, either you're incredibly happy that they've died, or you're incredibly sad that, or
sure, like if it's a villain or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Joffrey test, of course, of like, I think there was a lot of people jumping up and down and going, yes, when Joffrey got killed in Game of Thrones. So, that's the sort of flip side of it. So, but you're right. You need to care in one way or another about the characters when they die. Otherwise, they're just a bunch of nameless red shirts, and there is quite a lot of that in The Walking Dead. Particularly on the main show, there's like random Alexandrians that get knocked off every so often and that sort of stuff. And you're like, you really don't particularly care very much.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. I like Tony as a character. I thought he was good. It's a shame we won't get to see more of him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And in the end of the episode, Elizabeth gets a radio call. They are expecting an update, which is late. They know the journey their person is on and is going to get more dangerous. She is risking everything because there is no easier way. Suddenly, Huck walks into the room. She was able to get away from the group for 48 hours. The asset's safe, Huck explains. She is fine and ordered to clean up. Elizabeth gives Huck her father's watch for the next time she might be late, implying and pretty much confirming that Elizabeth is Huck's mother, meaning that Huck is Elizabeth's daughter, because that's how that works. But yeah, interesting that they mentioned one of the most interesting things to me here is the 48-hour thing, because this tells me that this is the I'm going to scout the area for 48 hours.
Well, it is, because if you remember at the end of that, she turns back up and they point, and I think it's Felix that goes, "Ooh, nice watch." So she's wearing the watch when she comes back. So clearly that's that gap in time. That's when she went ahead to scout ahead, which is interesting because we thought that was weird at the time, and we thought maybe we'd get a little flashback, and they jumped over it, because she went to scout ahead and then came, and then the next time we saw her, she was waiting for the gang and they turn up in the van. So, now we know why she went to scout ahead and where she went and what this was. The interesting thing for me about this is the asset.
Yeah.
Because who's that?
I think it's probably one of the
it's got to be one of the girls, surely. It must be.
My guess is Hope, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
Could the asset be both of them, or does it have to just be one of them? I guess it could be either, really.
The assets, because it's difficult to say because she says the asset's safe, so that could mean the assets are safe, or it could mean the asset is safe. So it's kind of vague that. So it could be both of them. I mean, we don't know. Have we seen them get injected with stuff previously? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't know. But you do wonder whether maybe, this guy was a scientist. Maybe they've been doing, maybe there was some experiment he tried on them, or I don't know.
Yeah. The other interesting thing here is, because she went away for 48 hours, So that means that wherever Elizabeth is, we don't really know where that is at the moment. Can't be very far away.
No, it's got to be.
If Huck was, because did she use any vehicles? I don't think. I think she just walked there, didn't
No, yeah. As far as we're aware, she walked there. So unless somebody was waiting to pick her up and drive her somewhere, which means that they can't be more than a day away, because she would have to spend a day getting there and a day getting back. So even if it was just like an hour meeting or something, yeah, it can't be more than an hour away. Than sorry, a day away somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. But all signs kind of at the moment point to, Huck potentially murdered Tony. We don't even know where Percy is, so I don't know about that. But it points to, maybe she murdered Tony, tried to frame Silas, and then the asset is either both the sisters or one of them. My guess is possibly Hope, but I guess we'll find out more.
Yeah.
Possibly next 2 episodes. But yeah, things are getting very, very much more interesting, and some people have complained a little bit about the CRM stuff, and they've kind of drip fed it to us. I think it's worked quite well actually, because it's sort of like when you get any sort of scene with Elizabeth or with the other woman who's by the walkers that are being tested on, it's sort of like quite short and sort of precious in a way, because it's like, okay, what little bit of information are we going to get in this small scene, because they are usually quite small scenes, but most of them, if not all of them, have been quite useful and quite revealing.
I think they have to, and I think they have been quite clever with the way that they've used that, because whenever we get a scene with those, it is quite a large reveal. We've like the fact that they're testing on walkers, the fact that Huck is a traitor, the fact that we got the scene at the end where they completely destroyed of the first episode, where they completely destroyed the campus colony. So they've been quite big things, even though we've seen very small bits of them. And you've got to bear in mind that the CRM seemed to be something that is across all of the shows. So you can't suddenly dump a whole load of stuff about the CRM out in this show in one go without it having influence over the other 2 shows as well. So you've sort of got to drip feed it out. And but I think the way that they're doing it is, yes, we're not seeing huge amounts of it, but the bits that we are seeing have been quite revealing, particularly for this show directly, which I think is the way to do it. I suspect we may see more of it, when in the second season as well. But
yeah, I certainly think it's been very good, very interesting. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. Big reveal there. Let's move on to a couple of pieces of feedback. If you, of course, you've got one more week. Seemingly next week is going to be the double finale episode. So you got one more chance to write in for this season, and of course Fear is off until next year. So there's basically 2 more Walking Dead episodes of 2020. But if you want to write in your thoughts, feelings, questions, comments, maybe concerns about any of the Walking Dead shows, or really just anything related to Entertainment Talk, Matthew at entertainmenttalk.org, Twitter eTalkUK, there's a contact page and information in your show notes. Yasmin, so do you think Silas did it or not? I definitely don't think he did. I know we talked about it a bunch because it's been the main point of the episode, really. I don't think that he did it. I think Huck either had something very large to do with it, or she did it herself and is trying to, for whatever particular reason, maybe because of whatever the asset is, trying to set Silas up for something. That's just sort of my prediction. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he did it. I'm reasonably convinced he didn't, and it's. I think you're probably right. I hadn't completely thought about, when they introduced Huck as a traitor, I hadn't actually kind of made the connection back. It was quite late when I watched the episode, and I hadn't kind of made the connection back that maybe she was the one setting up Silas as well. But yeah, I mean that does make perfect sense. That I think I completely agree with you. I think that it seems likely that maybe she wanted to, she saw that how protective Silas was of I'm getting the girls mixed up. Iris. um, so yeah, I mean, which makes me wonder whether Iris is actually the asset, because the fact that she sees that Silas is so infatuated with Iris, maybe that's the reason why she thinks, okay, I need to get rid of this kid because he's going to be a problem. If I need to kind of take this girl away at some point later on. So it does make me wonder whether maybe Iris is the asset.
Yeah.
Unless it is both of them. But yeah. So I think you're probably right. I think she probably set Silas up. So yeah, unless of course we're both wrong and it's Elton, in which case that will be interesting to see. I mean, I don't think it is, but that would be interesting to see because of the fact that he's now gone off with Silas, and if that was the case, Huck will be desperate to get Elton back next episode. But I don't think it is. I think it's probably the girls.
Yeah. That would be pretty funny, or not really funny actually. It'd be pretty interesting. Gareth writes and says, so double finale episode next week. Any predictions, fellas? I think that they'll make it to wherever they're supposed to be going, because bear in mind that's 2 episodes and not 1. So you've got at least 90 minutes, because they're about 45 minutes each, if not a little bit more. So I think that they'll make it to wherever they've got to go, because clearly they're not actually very far away from it if Huck can just kind of get there. Or some sort of place that's near it. I think that they'll get there. I think we'll have a full reveal of what happened to Tony, and maybe that'll be a good cold open. I think just quickly sort of show that scene, and then kind of have a situation not throughout the entire episode, but through a good chunk of the episode, to where the audience knows but the characters don't. So we would then know what happened to Tony. Sort out this whole who at least is the asset, or what is the asset, I suppose, and then kind of go from there, and then some sort of hopefully not too bad cliffhanger at the end.
I rather suspect that I think Percy will probably show back up.
That as well. Yeah,
I think so. I think we'll probably have that. I do quite like the idea of Percy actually showing up with Silas and not really knowing everything that's gone on, because if Silas had nothing to do with the death of Tony and it was Huck that did it herself, and Percy saw it and ran, if he sees the two of them on their own, he may approach them and not be fearful about approaching them. He may approach them going, oh my God, what happened? And then explain the story to them, and that could turn them around to go after the rest of the group. So that may be one way of doing it. I do wonder if maybe we do get the reveal. That's where they end it. Is maybe they get to the edge of getting to the father. I don't think we're going to get necessarily a full reveal of here's CRM and here's all this stuff. I don't think we're going to get completely into that, but it may be that we get to them kind of reaching the area, but we also maybe get a reveal of Huck being a traitor as well. I'm not sure whether they'll drag that into the next season.
I kind of have a bit of a feeling that Huck is a traitor, but under duress of something, because I just think that that's something that Elizabeth would do.
But then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can understand maybe Huck changing her mind, having gotten to know the kids, possibly. I'm not sure necessarily whether she did start it under duress, and I'm not entirely convinced by that. I think that she probably did do it because it's her mother and her mother asked her to do it. But whether she has an affinity for the kids at this point, and whether she kind of thinks, well, what they're talking about doing to them, because we don't know what they want them for yet, but maybe she finds out what they're thinking of doing.
We know possibly what the asset is, but not what it's for, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I also think that you'll probably get Hope telling Iris about Elton's mum.
Yeah,
That
I
would
think
make
so,
sense.
and I think Iris is going to be okay with that.
Understanding.
I mean, understanding about that. I mean, not
Hmm.
okay about it, but it happened so long ago. I think she's going to understand that.
Hmm. That just got me thinking a bit actually, because of the whole Huck reveal, and Huck knows about what Hope did to Elton's mum by accident, but she still
Mm.
knows what happened. I wonder if Huck will try and use that some way in the finale, possibly. Because if she is like an out and out sort of traitor or like spy or whatever, and she knows one of the group's worst secrets, that might not be very good. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
but I mean, the problem is that pretty much everybody that needs to know knows about it now. So I'm not
hmm.
sure
Does Elizabeth
whether
know? Maybe.
uh no, but I don't think it would make. I mean, the fact that Iris that Hope killed some random kid's mother when she was a little girl, I don't think will make a huge amount of difference to Elizabeth one way or another.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, no, I don't think that information's much use to Huck at this point.
Hmm. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, we'll see what happens next week. If it is a single episode or a double finale, we'll of course know by the time we come back next week, because we'll have watched the one or two episodes by
Yeah.
that point. So we'll be back next week for the season finale. Interesting stuff. There's a lot of potential of what they could do. Some really interesting things that have been set up. So we'll see how it all plays out. The other thing I wanted to quickly predict, I don't think anybody will die in next week's episode.
No, I don't think so.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
it's such a small core cast at this point.
Hmm. I'm
I
not talking about red shirts either, by the way. If Elizabeth turns
yeah,
around and shoots some guy in the head, that doesn't count.
yeah, no, I think out of the core cast members, I think it's unlikely.
hmm Yeah,
I mean, it's always a possibility in the Walking Dead world, but I don't
sure.
think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't see them doing that.
hmm Anyway, we'll be back next week to discuss whatever does happen next week's episode, so be aware to tune in and whatever to the podcast. If you'd like to find the podcast, of course, which you've pretty much already done, but if you'd like to find everything else that we do, it is on entertainmenttalk.org, TV, video games, films, and Manchester United podcasts as well. If you like what you've heard today and you want to support it and get involved, that would be brilliant. There's lots of different options for you. Patreon, there's the $1 and $3 level tiers. That's for ad-free and review options. Sorry, ad-free podcast and review options. Word of mouth, you can simply tell people that you know about the content that we make, get them to come over here to Entertainment Talk, and they can have a listen for themselves. Social media, you can do the same thing, but through Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media thing you use these days, or Facebook groups, so please consider doing that as well. Speaking of TV and film news, if you want your up-to-date, reliable TV and film news, David's got you covered over on geektown.co.uk, Geektown Radio. On Tuesdays, this week's episode is available to be listened to, so go and have a listen to that one, and check out geektown.co.uk. You can search for Geektown on your favourite podcast platform. You can also search for Entertainment Talk on your favourite podcast platform. Get yourself subscribed, and please be sure to rate and review as well. Haven't actually checked that for a while, so probably need to go and do that, actually, the ratings thing, because iTunes does not tell you. You have to go and figure that out for yourself, but I'll have a look at that anyway. But yeah, that's that. Over on the Twitch side of things, you can find Bex streaming daily over on Twitch. She's got her Scream Saturday streams with Dead Space and other cool games as well. If you want to find that, you can search for Trista Bytes. That's Trista BYTES on Twitch. Go and follow her over there. Some very, very good stuff. If you want to see me play some different video games over on Twitch, some Walking Dead games, and see what I would do with the Manchester United team, sometimes good and bad things, but you can find me on Twitch streaming different games if you want to, over on eTalk UK. I don't want to talk about how the last game ended, so but you can find me on Twitch, eTalk UK, for that as well. And of course, look out for Let's Play Sundays. We'll be back next week. Tune in for the season finale, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.